Every morning, Marcus walked into the office and said the same thing. I'm going to make a sale today. His teammate laughed. It's just a product. Why are you so excited? Marcus smiled because I believe in what we're offering. I'm not just excited about it. If I'm not excited about it, why should the customer be excited? So one afternoon, Marcus, a customer who was hesitant to buy, instead of pushing the sale, Marcus told a simple story about how the product had helped another customer save time, reduce frustration, and focused on what mattered most. The customer's eyes lit up. I can see why you're so excited about this, she said. Now I'm excited too. She bought the product. That evening, Marcus's teammate asked, so what made the difference? Marcus replied, people don't just buy products, they buy confidence, belief, the excellence that comes from knowing something can make their life better. So, the lesson learned, if you want customers to get excited about your product, start by getting generally excited yourself. Your enthusiasm is contagious, and sometimes it's the most powerful part of the sale. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another IGA webinar. So excited you can join us. We've got a great program for you and some great special guests. And as you may know, we are the Association for the Indoor Golf Industry, and our main job is helping indoor golf operators, help them do a better job and be more successful. So we know what their needs are, but today's a little bit different. We're going to be talking to you, the supplier, the vendor, and we want to help you get your products and services in their shops. So today's topic, how to sell supplies and services to indoor golf operators. We got some great stuff that we're covering. And just to give you a quick little overview of what you can expect today, the opportunity, why indoor golf is attractive to the B&B market. Know your customer. There's many types of operators out there. We're going to discuss the different types. What operators buy, supplies, equipment, technology, services. What should be the outcome? Is it just a sale, or is it helping customers? Prospecting. Where do you find these customers? What does that conversation look like? What are some questions you should be asking? And then how do you close the sale? Not only how do you close the sale, but how do you make it a reoccurring sale? And then finally, we're going to give you a 5-step action plan at the very end to help you with your sales. Guys, I brought in two of the experts in this industry. They've been in this industry for a long time, and they know the indoor market, and they come from two different perspectives. One comes from a seller perspective, and one comes from a buyer perspective. So I want to welcome first Samir. Samir, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate you can be here, and say hello and tell them a little bit about Even Play and where you're coming from.
Thank you, Phil, and thanks for gathering everybody today. Samir Gupta, co-founder at Even Play. We are an AI gaming and competitions platform to make off-course golf more fair and fun. We're live in thousands of simulators, hundreds of venues. Our patented technology allows off-course golfers to compete for prizes and money. So we integrate our technology, it's B2B2C, within simulator platforms like Full Swing, X Golf, About Golf, GolfTech, SkyTrack, things like that. In so doing, I've spent probably over 150 days live at commercial venues of all types and spent thousands of hours seeing people play, talking to operators. That's how we've actually crafted our technology. So I've spent a lot of time at all kinds of venues all across the country. And feel free to ask me any questions about that along the way.
Perfect. It's so great to have you, buddy. And then, guys, Kyle kind of comes from two perspectives. He is the owner of one of the biggest indoor golf facilities in the country. He knows what he buys. He knows from that perspective, but he also sells. He's the best salesman, one of the best salesmen I know. So, Kyle, my buddy, he also helps us at the IGA as a development director. So, Kyle, welcome. Thanks for joining us, and tell the folks about you and your perspective.
Thanks, Mr. Phil. I'm super excited to be here because I do love selling and talking to operators. So super excited. Just a little quick 60-second version about me. I was once a former tour player. I opened a golf room with a one bay facility in the back of a CrossFit gym. I thought it was sweet, but now looking back, it looked like a homeless shelter. But from there, I built it from one bay to two bays, and then two to three, and then threes to six, six to seven, and then 7 to 12. So this is it behind me. It's a 12 bay TrackMan facility. I think it's the largest player development facility in America, but I might be wrong. But from my understanding, it is. So I own the golf room. I also own the golf room everywhere. We taught 125,000 lessons online last year to passionate golfers that are using these indoor simulators or at their house to do that. So I have a whole online company. I also own collegegolf.com. So we do the college recruiting for all the AJGA members. And then I also own buildagolfbusiness.com, which is my way of kind of giving back to the soon to be entrepreneurs so that when they open a facility, they don't make a six-figure mistake and do something wrong. So that's me in a nutshell, Mr. Phil.
Perfect. And guys, you have to know these are two experts. And so you got the best of the best sharing with us today. So let's just get right into it. I'm going to prep you all by saying this is an overview. This is a sales overview, and we're going to be taking deeper dives down the road, but we wanted to give you a quick overview, and you probably have lots of questions, but know that not only are our panelists available to you afterwards, but so are we, obviously, and we're here to help you be successful. So let's get into it. We all get bombarded by companies who want to sell us product and services, and we get 100 emails and phone calls every day. But the last thing we need to do is buy more products and services. So realistically, guys, what are we selling? What is the indoor golf operator looking for? What do they need? Do they need more product and services, or is it something different? Samir, what do you find is the biggest needs of the indoor golf operator?
I think the pain points are, reducing costs and increasing revenue. I think that's probably more anchored on the increasing revenue, especially as the market has become more crowded. And so if you were the only indoor golf operator in your region, you might have a second, third, or maybe eighth new competitor in that market. So anything that can make your facility more attractive is probably first. But anything that can reduce cost, and cost doesn't only mean money, although it's not bad to reduce monetary costs. It's often time as well, right? So as you run one facility, as you scale that into more facilities, reducing the recurring tasks or eliminating them entirely is attractive to the operators.
Absolutely, hit it right on. Kyle, you're a buyer. You got people selling you stuff all the time. What are your main objective as the end user?
So I think from my objective and probably speaking on behalf of the buyer, because I am in a lot of forums and a lot of Facebook groups and talk to a lot of soon-to-be entrepreneurs and current entrepreneurs that are opening indoor golf facilities and running golf facilities. One of the biggest things that I find that's a pain point for them is essentially closing what I would call like the seasonal revenue loop, right? So a lot of times you'll find it where it's like, hey, they're booming with in the north, they're booming with demand and making a ton of money January, February, March, and then it's like radio silent till November, and the entrepreneurs and the owners are freaking out because they can't pay their mortgage, right, or their rent. So one is that piece, and really what it all comes back to, which I'll kind of hone in today from the B2B side, and kind of going over this thing, is really maximizing what I would call this LTV to CAC ratio of how do I get customers to spend more over the course of their lifetime, and then how do I systematically go about getting the right customer into the facility. So but the seasonal loop of revenue is the thing I think that keeps the owner up at night, and that's where from the product standpoint of selling it, it's how do you wrap your what is your product going to do to help facilitate and make that easier for the owner?
Absolutely. So I'm hearing the bottom line, guys. Obviously, they all want to make money. They want to save time. They want to save money. They want new customers. They want to give a great customer service experience. And, they want to reduce the headaches. So that's, I think, what any business person is looking for. And so your indoor golf facility customers are looking for the same thing. But what I found is there's all types of different indoor facilities out there. They're not all the same mold, and they all have different needs. Samir, you've seen them all. You've seen every type. Tell us what you find the different in their needs, if you've seen any.
One of the hallmarks that I say internally and externally is, are people bringing their own clubs? Right? There's a lot of facilities where people don't bring their own clubs, and that's a certain type of facility. Whether it's a putt-putt facility, whether it's an entertainment first facility, whether it's a simulator at a sports bar, or different things like that. Let's not forget that those places do exist, and that they do require a lot of the same stack as everybody else. And then, when you look at facilities that the majority of the people that show up do bring their own clubs, the question is, what's their primary purpose? Is it game improvement and player development practice? Is it entertainment? Is it an on-course replacement where, seasonally, it's all right, it's Minnesota in February. You're just taking the people from the country clubs and you're putting them indoors. So yeah, I just gave you like one of my cheat codes on first understanding, are people bringing their own clubs in? Because if they're not, that you can tell a lot about a facility that way. And they might require different things because they're more entertainment focused. If they are, is it education, game improvement, etc.? Is it entertainment? Is it on-course replacement? The manner in which technology has facilitated the distribution of golf is extraordinary. So whether it's gamified driving ranges, 24/7 facilities, food and beverage driven facilities, whether it's single simulators in larger venues, you really need to spend some time understanding who you're selling to, who's walking in that door. And then, as Kyle mentioned, their seasonality and the issues that they're facing.
They all have different needs. And before we start rambling on about our product and services, we got to understand their needs. We're going to talk a little bit about that later on in this webinar. But Kyle, from your perspective, how do we know our customer? How do we? What are the different needs of these different type facilities?
I think that in some sense, I would say from the operator standpoint or from the supplier standpoint, it's probably helping. To be very transparent with you, it's probably helping some of these owners actually understand who their avatar is or who their customer is, because I actually don't think that they even know. Because what I find is that for example, the indoor golf simulator place that says we're going to hire or we're going to be a place where people come play golf, that's a great model and that's a great revenue stream, but that's only 3 months a year. So, what are you actually going to do to bring that client back into the facility for the other 9 months, right? Because if it's 76 degrees and sunny in Minnesota in July, you're still going outside, right? And I'm not going to the indoor space. So that's where understanding, and just echoing again what Samir said, them understanding first, the owner understanding what their avatar is, and then how does your product actually make that avatar, that person, stay on property more? Because if they're on property more, they spend more money, right? So, and whether that's 24/7, whether that's indoor golf, whether that's training facilities, whatever it is, if they're in your facility, they can spend money. If they're not, they're not. So how is your product then going to move the needle, which therefore increases the LTV of that customer inside that facility? But it really comes back first and foremost to knowing the suppliers, knowing the avatar they're selling, and then being able to talk to the emotional side of that operator, because people will buy in the buying behavior of emotion, logic, and fear. So we have to sell them on the emotion of what is this product actually going to do and how that then is going to change their bottom line.
operators are not made the same. They're different. They have different needs. They have different goals. They sell different stuff. So let's take a quick look at what do they sell? What are they trying to achieve? What are they trying to promote first? And obviously, we look at things like, simulator bays. Some sell food and beverage, some don't. Some offer lessons, some don't. Some offer leagues and events, some don't. From your perspective, Samir, these are the basics, but what do you see they're primarily looking to gain the most revenue from? What's kind of the common thread with most of these indoor facilities?
It's a great question. And looking forward to Kyle's experience here as well. In my experience, there's either entertainment, practice, or game improvement, right? Like you walk into there and you want to have a good time with your friends, right? If that, that's a vibe. Food and beverage, right? Group events, corporate events, birthday parties, different things. It's a vibe, right? Not everybody's going to have their own clubs. That maybe some will, and that's super common as well. Practice is different than that. Practice is you're going in. Sometimes it's smaller groups, sometimes it's individuals. You want to get your shots in the morning. You want to make sure to stay tuned over the winter. So that's just listen. A lot of us are golfers. We need to hit golf shots, right? Like we got that itch. We got to do it. And game improvement is a version of practice, but it's more directed. It's a little bit more. They're going to look at their numbers more specifically, right? So practice, you might be messing around and playing 3 holes, 9 holes, 8 holes, whatever it is. Game improvement, you're much more analytics driven, you're lesson driven, you're data driven. So it's sort of a version of practice, but it is I would say, a very valuable subsector of that market.
Makes sense. Kyle, you not only sell some of this stuff, but you also consult with folks who sell different stuff. So looking at this list, based on your experience,
Yep. So
am I missing anything?
No, so Samir, I agree with you, but on one caveat, I would actually only separate it into 2. So the way I would define it is I would say where people get I'll just say this. So for companies, i.e. X Golf, right? Or In Town Golf, right? Where I think that those companies need to understand is that those companies, those are bars. And that what In Town does that's really, really well, and if you guys don't know In Town, it's like X Golf, but kind of on steroids. Like super nice, very bougie. It's kind of like almost like a speakeasy, right? The thing about In Town Golf is that In Town Golf is somewhere that I would take my wife on a Friday night to go get a Manhattan before I go on a date. And we don't care about hitting golf balls. They're just something to do. Just like it could be darts, but they could just give the simulators away for free. And it doesn't matter because they're just giving the simulator away for free so that I now get a second Manhattan, right? That's one sector. And I think that what they try to do when those entertainment F&B places, they try to do golf, but it's like now what ends up happening is now you're competing with golf. And with the way it is right now, you lose, and this is my opinion, because the public course rate and the playing rate, they're too similar right now. So what I mean by that is going to rent a bay to play a round of golf is $50. Well, going to play a public course is $65. That $15 gap is not big enough yet to say I'm going to go play indoor golf when it's 75. So the entertainment industry, I think, needs to get more wrapped around entertaining and have really, really swanky drinks, like a really good mixologist, amazing food, and have like a margarita that's out of this world. And then the practice facilities, what people don't understand is that the Bay, Samir and Phil, just opened the loop for the other revenue. It's just like iPhones. They give the iPhone, and Apple doesn't care about the sales of iPhone. They do it so that they get all the money from the apps because they take 30% of every paid app that comes through iPhone, which is why T-Mobile is like, we got all these free iPhones, like free iPhones if you sign up, right? So for us, like practice practice just opens the loop to all the other stuff. And the facts show that 82% of golfers want a lesson, but they don't know where to go. And lesson takers spend 78% more money than non-lesson takers. So I would say that when people, I think everybody wants to get better. At least 82% of them want to get better. They just don't know how to get better. And that's where the player development facility is there to first sell them what they want, which is I want practice, but give them what they need, which is I need to get better because I suck and it sucks to suck. No one wants to suck, right? Phil, when you play golf and you suck, it's a bad day.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So I would say, and I think that the practice only facilities are missing a massive revenue thing. And I'm talking like if you have a 3-bay facility, they're missing about $600,000 in revenue by not opening up the loop to the other stuff and doing it well. So they're like, I have 3 bays and I make 220 grand. I'm like, great. I had 3 bays and made over $1 million, like the same square footage. So like, let's do that one.
Right. Yeah. And I think you're seeing a lot of crossover, and you're seeing some of the practice facilities add additional items to sell. But the bottom line is everyone's different needs. They have different goals, and it's our job as selling to understand those needs and goals. And we're going to review some of those questions, but there's different depending on the size of the organization, the size of the facility. In some cases, it's a one-man shop, and in other cases, there's layers of management. So who's the buyer? Who's the person that you want to look for that's going to make the decision? Samir, you're probably a little bit different than maybe a lot of us folks, but tell me who you deal with and who are you looking for when you're approaching an indoor facility?
Well, I will say this. I have interacted with all 5 people mentioned in that buyer table across dozens of facilities. And I've learned so much just because, if it's just one experience or if it's my own opinion, I can be wrong. And then you start speaking to, dozens of general managers with different technology stacks, with different customer bases across the country. And then you see the stuff that's different amongst all of them, and then the stuff that seems to be the same. Every facility is going to have a different champion for a different product. It is unfortunate. Some of the stuff comes top down from if you're a franchise operation. So some of the stuff is going to be dictated as part of the master franchisor agreement. But I have seen a large amount of variance regarding who the champions are, who cares about these things within the organization. I've also seen a large amount of turnover. So the person that you're talking to today, it might not be the person in 6 months. And I think that these are just table stakes for our industry, where you have a lot of high net worth individuals opening up individual locations. They're super passionate for about 3 to 6 months, and then they start to delegate. Hiring is difficult. The turnover is high. Until these people start to scale, there's a lot of uncertainty. As soon as they start to scale, processes start to be put in place across multiple locations, and that might decrease the amount of noise. So I think it's really important when speaking to any organization. First of all, don't believe whoever they say the buyer is. They might not know. They're going to say who they think is correct. I don't think that they're, guiding you incorrectly, but only through interacting with that organization will you understand who the different stakeholders are. And what you want to do is you want to find a champion, somebody who understands what you're trying to sell. And then they can explain it to their team, and not only explain it to their team, what's as important, and you end this at the first slide when you talk about recurring revenue. It's not only about the first sale. What you're trying to create is a relationship where you're providing value to that venue on a forever basis. So it's not just about the first sale, but who's going to implement your product or service on site. And then, that will drive that long-term relationship that you're looking for. So yeah, I'd love to be able to say like, hey, it's the facility manager at every location. That's the person that you need to sell. But it's definitely a moving target. The larger the organization, the more that will be homologated and that there will be somebody that's going to be more persistently there. The smaller the organization, the more likely that you're going to need to deal with a little bit of noise in that area and some changing over time.
And a prime example, and Samir, you know this better than anybody because you work with Back Nine, and Back Nine is the biggest in the country as far as franchise locations, and they make some decisions at the top, right? At corporate, you will, use this particular simulator, you use this particular screen, but each franchise is different and owned by a different individual. So when it comes to, working with golf courses or buying or having a commercial cleaner come in, there's a lot of decisions that are made locally by that individual franchise owner. So there's two levels of selling, and it's our job to get through those levels and find out who buys what. So Kyle, you're the guy, you're the owner, you do it all, but you also have managers and you delegate. So how much do you delegate, and how much freedom do you give your managers to buy what they need to get done?
We basically kind of have a like a $2,500 rule, which is if it's under $2,500, then I let my GM essentially and managers kind of make that decision if they find it, and they, their butts are on the line too. If it's a bad decision, like they have to be accountable to that. And then if it's above that, then obviously it kind of comes to me. But I want to give them the freedom and I just want to give them the freedom to be able to feel like they can create and design as well, so that they don't feel like they're pigeonholed by me micromanaging them.
At the same time, if that product or service gets to you, gets to the owner, and you like it, you're going to tell them what to buy. So I think the moral of the story, gang, is Samir said it clearly. There's a different person for a different need. Our job is to look for that champion and look for the decision maker, because you can spend a whole lot of time, talking to one person, talking your head off, and it's wasted until you make sure you're getting your message across to the main decision maker. So. Good stuff. All right. So, gang, we could probably, this next slide, go on forever. What are these indoor golf operators buying? And the list is endless. I counted 52 products and services that they're buying right now, and that's probably just scratching the surface. But Samir, I know you sell software. That's your main thing. You sell technology. But what else in your conversations you see your folks asking for or looking for along with what you're offering?
I think being a tech guy, my experience is going to be leaning in that direction, and so I'll start there. But having owned and operated bars and restaurants across my career as well, I can speak to some of that. So I'll start with the latter. If you are serving food and beverage, it's a full stack, as Kyle mentioned, right? Like your bar, right? Like, so all of the bar stuff comes into play. And if it's the first time you're ever sourcing and selling food and beverage, that's a big learning curve, right? It's not the same as showing up to a restaurant and ordering a burger. It's amazing how many things need to come into play to actually serve that burger at the right time, so that when the person has an experience, they don't think negatively of everything else because of the burger. And in fact, let's then go aspirationally to actually think positively about the burger. It's actually very complicated. And if you do go down that route, and obviously it's extraordinarily profitable when you can get it right and scale it, but you should probably take a nibble of the humble pie and bring somebody in that's done it before. It's always great to trial and error, but this is a very easily acquired skill and expertise in your market. There are hundreds of failed restaurant operators right next to you. There are hundreds of successful restaurant operators right next to you. So if it's the first time that you're doing food and beverage, like bring some help in. And then yes, there's that full stack of everything that you're going to need for that food and beverage supply. So that's one piece of it. I'm going to move to the tech side of it. Running a business today is complicated. If it's the first time that you're running an end-to-end business, then, I always say this, 80% of every business is the same. It's hiring, it's accounting, it's marketing, it's creating the systems and processes that allow you to operate as a business in the jurisdiction in which you're operating. Hopefully these people have some experience in that so that they can sort of deal with that 80%. If they don't, again, leaning into a local network to help get you. So there's all these software systems. You're going to need QuickBooks. You're going to need payroll management. You're going to need all these things. Like those are real supply chain things for any business. And they're becoming cheaper and easier to access, cheaper and easier to automate today than ever before. So if you're using, a 15-year-old system, I don't know, maybe look at new options. They might be cheaper. They might be easier. And it's easier to sort of source and find those things. If you're a vendor selling those things, I think you do have a captive audience right now. Like if your solutions are better, cheaper, faster, those are, that's the 80% stuff. In regards to the 20% stuff, and some of this might actually fall into the 80%, but things like, booking software, revenue optimization, marketing CRM. These are the things that haven't fully been refined in our industry yet. Everybody's sort of on their own. I'll give you the story of one of my first go-to-market partners a few years ago. They were like, "We know we have repeat customers. We just don't know who they are. Can you help us figure out who's coming back to our venue?" And our mind was blown in regards to, and I'm going to speak down to it a little bit, the lack of sophistication in this market. I come from a traditional technology universe, so understanding analytics and repeat behavior is like 101 for us. And this seemed to be like a PhD class. So, I think it's a great opportunity to bolt on software and services that make life easier and solve for the basic questions of who's coming in, how can we bring them back in, how do we optimize their experience, and how do we get them back in the door.
It makes a lot of sense. Kyle, you got something to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, to echo what you did, Samir, that's exactly why I started like Build a Golf Business, was because a lot of the entrepreneurs that these suppliers are seeing, like, it's not their fault. They just don't know they don't know what they're doing, right? You say like, "Hey, what's your churn rate?" They're like, "What's churn? What are we making?" It's like, that's not what that means, right? So helping them, and then I built that whole operating system and everything inside TGR lives inside of a licensing program that they get everything. But I think from the supplier standpoint, my take with all of this stuff is I am a believer in following the math that essentially says that 68% of America's wealth lives within the top 10% of Americans, right? Which means the average disposable income of an American that's inside the top 10% is $250,000. So if you're selling a product to an entrepreneur, the question that I'm always posing to my soon-to-be facility owners is like, I use an example. Phil, you'll like this because it's in your neck of the woods. Phil, you ever been to Taco Madera in Scottsdale Quarter? Or in Fashion Square, right? So Taco Madera, for everybody that doesn't know, it's like this really high-end bougie Mexican restaurant in Fashion Square, right just south of Scottsdale. And when you drive up to Taco Madera, you walk up, there's valet, there's guys with ears pieces, and you take the door and you got to pull the door with like two hands because it's this gigantic like cedar wood door. Now the owners could have spent $1,000 just on a normal door, but the owners decided to spend, let's call it $25,000 on that door. But when they sold $25,000 door, they didn't just buy a door. What they bought is that the person automatically knows the price point that's yield inside the facility. So no one's going into Taco Madera and they're like, "What the hell are you talking about that the meal is $52? I thought that this was just a cheap $3 taco, like Tecates and tacos for $1 tacos day." Like, no, 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 no. So the operators or the suppliers have to understand that they can sell expensive stuff provided that it can yield an expensive price. And what happens in business in general is that if you're in the middle of price point, you're dead. Either be the most expensive or the cheapest, but the cheapest is tough because then it's always a race to the bottom. Because the second that you have two places that are running the same tech and one bay is $35 and one bay is $34, you now got undercut. And that's why on the operations standpoint, at the golf room, you can't get an appointment right now till like September 15th. And there is 6 golf facilities within 8/10 of a mile from here. There's like the Golf House, Golf Tech, In Town Golf, True Spec Golf, and 2 private instructors and the golf room. And we're sold out. So, like, if you can build your facility and the suppliers help to what I call in my engagement flywheel, this is the equipping stage, but you can equip the facility with something that no one else can replace and you cannot compete with, you now enter a blue ocean and you're in a world by yourself. Like what we have at the golf room, you couldn't recreate. You couldn't do it. You could try, but you'd fail. And that's where the suppliers can walk around the facility owner to say, "Hey, our product is going to be a differentiator for you that no one else can do." I.e., kind of Samir, like what you kind of have going. Like that's a different thing going with Even Play. Not everyone can do that,
I,
right?
I I will say one thing though, Kyle. You got 6 facilities near you. They're all buying shit, right? So let's not, because this is a vendor
Yeah,
conversation,
yeah.
right? Like, if you're a vendor, maybe your strategy is to go to the race to the bottom facilities
Yeah,
on
and they,
price,
yeah,
right? Like just know that, right? Like know who you're selling to be able to speak their language.
100%. And I think the market has all type. Like you obviously have Muni golf courses, and then you have Pine Valley. So like you don't have to be just the Pine Valleys. There's a need in the market for the Munis as well. So
So let me
100%.
guys, that's such great wisdom. And I tell you what I've learned from both of you right now and reminded of is the fact that, sometimes we go into a facility or meet with a customer and we have tunnel vision and we're thinking just sell our product. That's all they need is our product and our service. But if we don't understand all the other things that go into pursuing excellence, like you said, Kyle, then you're not going to get the sale. So it's a bigger picture than just I want to sell this one thing to my product to these facilities. So let's keep that in mind. But there's a process here, gang. There's a sales process. Both you guys have been selling for a long time. You know the process. And I have to be honest with you, I've run into a lot of people that don't know that sales is a step-by-step process. You just don't walk in and say, here's my product. Do you want it? There's a process. And you guys both, if you've never been to sales training at all in your life, you don't know that there's a step-by-step process. You don't just go from step 1 to step 10. They're step by step to get to that end result. So there's a lot of different philosophies. There's a lot of different processes. But Samir, I'd love to hear your thinking is what's your step by step process in selling your service?
I mean, in all honesty, we shortcut some of this over time. I have a ton of experience across all of this. So I'm going to start you at the beginning, and then I'll tell you where we got, just to
Yeah.
be completely honest. So we were definitely starting at the venue level. That's how I ended up spending so much time at these facilities across the country. I remember showing up to a place in Cleveland in February. I have never been so cold in my entire life, ever, 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 ever. This place was killing it. The leagues, 50 people showing up, on a Tuesday. So I went to see and spend time with these people and talk to them. But it also involved me going to Cleveland in February. So, both sides of that coin. Um, so step one is understand the problem. Go and see it with your own eyes. Talk to the operators, talk to the players. At least that's the way that I do my business, which is, you know, until I'm able to see it and feel it, with my own hands, I don't understand the extent. And then I don't understand the stakeholders in this, right? Like who at the facility cares, how does it affect the gameplay and the player, etc. So, um, step one is understanding the problem, and then who it impacts within that facility. I do that at my business. I would suggest you doing that at yours. It's amazing how much you learn just through off the record conversations with everybody involved. Um, and then, once you really understand what the problem is, you can start socializing your solutions, your products and services that address that problem. You might iterate not only the product or service, which is one thing that we did, right? We're a technology company, so we started to adapt the product and service for the operator. They wanted to be able to spin up tournaments. They wanted to be able to do this. They wanted to be able to do that. And that's what I do. So I was all ears, and then the players wanted to be able to play against their friends. So we started to adapt what our offering was, and literally change the product for what they were doing. But alongside the development side of it, there was a change in the messaging as well. So understanding the impact allows for a framing of the solution that becomes meaningful for the stakeholder. And, no matter what, there's two stakeholders here. There's somebody on the operator side, and then there's the player that's affected by it. Figure out a number, figure out a story that you can tell that resonates with your buyer, right? And it could be a lift story, people that use my product, and Kyle was talking about lift earlier, targeting this customer, people that use my product, increase in revenue. Or it could be a reduction story, people that cause my, turn goes down, costs go down. But being able to, do an elevator pitch backed with numbers and being able to tell an anecdote could end up being the result of all of these steps. And if it's not that simple, it's not going to sell. If it requires too much time and attention, and if it requires memory, it's probably not going to work that easily. That's my experience. We've ended up obviously adjusting. So now we're B2B2C. We work with the technology stacks. Our features go live across thousands. It'll soon be hundreds of thousands of simulators. But our technology partners have the client service relationships with the operators. So we haven't left that world of how do you speak to an independent operator in Nebraska or a chain operator with 12 venues in Georgia. Like that still actually matters a lot to us. In my experience, has really resonated with the technology companies because, to be honest, they don't have anybody spending 150 days live in commercial venues talking to operators. And, so we've been able to actually synergize and start to develop those products and communications strategies. But that's my own experience. Kyle, I'm looking forward to hear what you get sold to on a regular basis.
Well,
So my
and
take-
Kyle is a sales trainer. So Kyle, you train people in selling, not just at your level, you're trying to sell customers, but in your other ventures, you're selling all the time. So what's your process? What's your thinking? What's your program? How does it work for you?
Well, I think there's one thing to preface this whole thing is that it's very clear that when someone is trying to sell you, or when you're trying to sell somebody, they do not like you, they do not know you, and they do not trust you. They automatically just don't like you. So it is our job first and foremost when we are trying to sell anything that we first need to call out who we are trying to do it. So for this, it would be like, if I was TrackMan, it'd be like, hey, soon to be owners of a golf facility, I want to talk to you, right? Because now I got their attention. From that point, I now need to fall into basically fulfilling what, if you want to look at like the 5 love languages, right? Like quality time, acts of service, words of affirmation, physical touch, and gift giving. So I need to basically fall into those 5 love languages and over deliver to them so that they know me, like me, and trust me, which then falls into the marketing funnel of 1174, which essentially for someone to pull out their credit card, they need to essentially be in interaction with you for 11 hours on 7 different interactions on 4 different media types. So once I've now done that, when I'm doing that, I'm then going to, as I get into the sales process and I now have earned their ear, right? And I'm now in front of them, I'm then going to follow the buying behavior of selling them on emotion, then logic, and then fear. So emotion is all done through like curious questioning, like, hey, I mean, it's things that's like talking about like basically most people will move to increase their level of status, right? Or their facility of level of status. And then if it's not that, it's then going into logic. How is your product better than another product? And then finally goes into the fear factor of like, well, what happens if you don't do this? Right? So it's following this emotion, logic, fear thing. And then ideally, there's a whole bunch of stuff with tonality and the right questions you ask. Where essentially what I'm ultimately trying to do is ultimately trying to make whoever it is that I'm selling, whatever it is that I'm selling, I'm trying to make it so that they're essentially selling themselves and I'm just asking the questions and that they actually come to their own buying behavior. I'm just navigating the road because otherwise, if I am actually trying to sell them, then there's automatic friction to where their guard's going to go up. But if they're selling themselves because I'm asking the right questions, then their guard goes down and then they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is just the next logical solution." Right? And now it's something that they're owning and I'm not pushing on them. Right? So that's kind of how we'd follow it so that it feels like it's them making the choice, not me pushing onto them what it is that they need to do. They need
That
to
makes
have
so much
they need to have their own epiphany.
sense. And what I'm hearing, Kyle, is build a relationship, get to know them, understand them, make them feel comfortable before you jump into any big presentation. People want to deal with people who they like and who they trust. And so if
Yeah.
we're just
So
selling a product or selling a service, hit a brick wall.
yeah, and your free stuff should be better than other people's paid stuff, right? So like right now at this year, I like with middle school, we do a lot of stuff with middle schools and high schools. I am like giving them tons of things. Like yesterday I bought a box of balls for every player on the middle school team in Dublin. So I mean, we bought 36 dozen golf balls with a win card, a course management card, and a handwritten note for free. So I'm like over delivering to all these coaches so that eventually they will, when I say, "Hey, can you send out an email about our junior academy?" They're like, "Oh, sure." Right? They send it out and then we cash in on a $15,000 junior academy lead. So like that's that I do think that a lot of times people want to like they want to jump in the sack right away and it's like, "Nope, you still got to court the girl. Like you got to do your due diligence before."
Kyle, if you buy me a box of golf balls, I'll even like you a lot more.
Oh,
Just
okay, perfect.
FYI.
I'll put you in the mailing list.
That's good. All right, we're going to have to tighten things up, gang. There's so much I want to talk about, but I just want to remind everyone that we'll be doing some follow-up, deeper dives. But let's just take a second on this. People are looking for a couple things when they got to buy something. They're looking at, am I going to make more money? Is it going to cost me anything? And if so, how much? And what risk am I taking? Guys, give me a quick minute on this slide, and then we'll move on to finding customers.
I'll go
Kyle?
here. I mean, my thing with selling with suppliers and getting pitched equipment all the time, right? First is I'm asking myself, I have in my own thing, I have some pillars which are very unique to me. This is not to everybody, is does it help the player understand, offer feedback, and offer constant contact? Those are for me pillars within my companies, but that's me very unique. The second thing I'm always asking when someone is pitching something is how does this increase the LTV of my customer? So does this make my customer stay longer and spend more? And then two, maybe more directly, does this allow me to charge more? Right? So like, and sometimes it's no. So like for example, not being braggadocious or whatever, but like I'm $500 an hour for a lesson. We have V1 pressure plates in the bay. Is V1, I love V1 and those guys are amazing, but like is that the best pressure map for player development? No. Like would it be better if I put swing catalyst in? Probably. If I put swing catalyst in, can I raise my rate? Not really. Like it's not going to make a difference, right? But if you have something that then brings into the facility that allows players to stay longer and it's going to make them stay on membership and not churn or not leave or whatever, then I'm like, oh great, this is awesome. And at the same time, um, a lot of people don't understand where it's like, okay, if I get kind of like to the door at Taco Madero, like, does this piece of technology allow me to instead of charging, let's just say $79, I can now charge $84, and then how many unique clients do I have in a year? It's like, oh wow, this is actually free. Awesome, right? So it's like for me, every buying decision and marketing decision and sales decision, I am very direct marketing. So everything for me, Phil, is backed by math, right? So like I got to know that I'm putting a dollar in and getting $10 out. And if I can see that, which is how I also sell, because I want to make it to be a win for for sponsors too. Right. So like I want to make it and we want to make it, Phil, to where it's like, hey, if you're giving $1, we can pretty much make sure that you get $5 back. And then it's like, this is a layup. Give me 20.
ROI, return on investment.
Yeah.
Let me add
Here,
one thing
jump in
here,
there.
and I know Kyle is like a very certain type of person and buyer in this market. I've interacted with all kinds, and many of them are not as sophisticated. Many of them are just obsessed with lowering costs.
Yeah.
So what I would say is whenever you're talking about this stuff or managing risk, some of them are just about risk management. It's crazy, right? Especially like you'll have like a few people that own a indoor golf venue, and like one of them, like the lawyer, is just a risk management guy. And if you're on his desk. So whatever it is, make sure that you understand that whatever product or service you have has a money, cost, and risk component to it. And when you pitch it, listen more than know what the other person is interested in out of these three.
Yeah.
Right? Like instead of you can't learn and know at the same time. Selling should be a learning process, right? So learn about your customer by listening to what they care about and then craft your message for that. That's it for me.
100%.
Makes sense. Good stuff. Guys, let's cover just quickly. Where do you find customers? Where are we looking? How do our viewers today find customers for their products and services? Kyle?
The Indoor Golf Alliance website.
I'm going to be
There's a-
really honest, and obviously I am a homeboy here, but like I mean, to be really frank, it's like if I was opening a facility, what I have found is basically 3 phone calls happen for whatever reason why they are. The first one is that it might be like what people are the indoor golf simulator build companies, like the Ace Indoors. And they just call and they're like, how much is it to build a bay? I have no idea, right? That's usually one. The second one is like the tech companies, like a company like USchedule, right? Or like MindBody or something. And that's where they're doing the CRM. And then the third piece, and it's not in this order, probably is the first, but the other one, Phil, quite frankly, is what we're doing at the Indoor Golf Alliance. Like, I need to have an alliance of other entrepreneurs that have done this so that I don't make a mistake. And is there some like free resources where I can make sure that I don't make a 6-figure mistake? So like, and that's always something. And this is me talking as I obviously I'm a buyer on this side, but I'm also supplier in regards of the consulting side. So where my brain, just like you guys, is always thinking is, where is the guy looking who is the assistant pro in Omaha, Nebraska, that's sitting on his couch at 8 o'clock on a Sunday, who's pissed off because he just spent 12 hours in the shop and he's like, I think I want to go open up my own facility. And he's daydreaming, but he's not telling anybody yet, because if he tells anybody, he gets fired. So now what is he probably doing? He's calling those 2 companies and joining like the Facebook groups, and he's joining Indoor Golf Alliance. So it's like that's where you should be headhunting, which is where, in some sense, from an ROI standpoint, the sponsorship inside IGA pays for itself 100x if it's done correctly. Because that's where they're living.
Yep, thank you for that.
Yeah, I think IGA is a great starting point. I think what Kyle said about Facebook groups, I think, like figure it out. Go to Phil. Figure out how to get your 10 champions. That's the only thing that matters to start. And once you get those 10 champions, then you can start scaling your marketing efforts after that. So I mean, I would say find 10, and until you find 10 people who love you, don't worry about getting to 1,000. And then once you find those 10 people who love you, go to Phil and you can find 100 or 1,000 after that.
Thank you guys both of that. And just as a reminder, we do have a facility finder map with all the locations throughout the US. It's a free service on our website. And you guys bring up a good point. And we have a lot of IGA preferred vendors and sponsors on this call, and I want to thank you all for your support. But what they know, and what I've already done and will continue to do, is introductions. I mean, I've sent Samir and Kyle several folks to say, hey guys, you need to know about this. So just keep that in mind. So I got some good news and bad news, guys. And Kyle warned me of this. Phil, there's too much content on this webinar. There's so many things that we still want to cover, but I also want to be sensitive to your time. So what I've decided to do is cut this in half and take another session where we're going to get into the rest of it. So what we're going to talk about next time, guys, is we're going to talk about some questions that you can ask your customers. We're going to take a deeper dive into that. We're going to look at how to overcome objections and what are people responding. We're going to discuss how to close account and how to grow those accounts. And then we're going to cover this five-step sales system. But again, we're wrapping up at the hour here. So I just wanted to remind everyone who we are, and then you give these guys some closing words. But if you're new with us, we are the IGA, the Indoor Golf Alliance. Our mission is simple. We're here to educate, inform, and network the industry. We're helping indoor golf facilities grow and hopefully share with them ideas on how to build their business. And that's our main function. But we have a lot of resources available, not only to them, but to you. We have weekly newsletters. We have monthly webinars. This is kind of a one-off special webinar, but I'm sensing with the popularity and all the people that want it, we're going to have to do some deeper dives, which we will. We have a podcast called Interview with an Operator. And I love this because we're learning directly from the operator. We have a supplier directory, which if you're not on it, we want to make sure that you get in it. We have the facility finder. We're going to be partnering or involved, I should say, with the PGA show in Orlando. We're going to have a leadership summit there, big room all day. We've got some how-to help manuals. We've got a community sharing platform on Reddit. We have product reviews on YouTube. And most importantly, we have connections to folks like Kyle and Samir. So I want to just encourage you to reach out to us because we reach everybody. We reach every indoor golf facility daily. We reach about 3,000 golf course owners. We reach installers, designers, investors, the golf media, instructors. So, we're here to help you get exposure. We can help you through emails, through newsletters, all types of exposure. We can do webinars like this featuring your product. We can feature your video presentations on our website. Guys, I'd love to keep going, but bottom line is there's so much information. Hopefully we can continue this in the in the following sessions that we do. I will tell you this, save the date, September 9th, if I'm not mistaken, Samir. Samir's going to be doing a deeper dive into getting into the mind of an operator. And that's going to be with Samir. Samir, why don't you share a little bit about that so that they can join us September 9th?
Yeah, so I put something together to try to explain my experience across the myriad of different operators, how they think entertainment, game improvement, so that as much as possible, I can be helpful in the market. We're agnostic. We don't sell anything anymore. We're part of, thousands of simulators. Will be in hundreds of thousands of simulators very soon. So, one of my goals is just to pass it forward. So I'm just going to give you my experience with the variety of operators, not speaking up or down to any of them. I'm not going to tell anybody how to do their business, but hopefully I can share my experience with everybody and then maybe create a forum where people can ask questions regarding like, what about this or that? And by the way, my experience has changed a lot over the past 3 years. Our market has matured a lot, and we can actually make that part of the Q&A conversation as well.
We're going to make that one an open forum, Samir, where people can interact with you, and I love that. Kyle, do you got any closing words for us? I know we kind of rushed through at the end, but trust me, gang, we're going to be back at you with more information. But Kyle, give us kind of a summation of what we're trying to sell.
I would say one thing, if I was going to make a piece of advice, especially since this webinar is filled with a lot of sponsors, is don't underestimate the value of the copy and the offer that is sitting inside of your promotion that IGA sends out. Because if that copy is really good and you give we'll call it the most irresistible free gift ever, right? And you give an offer that's so good that it's stupid to say no. And then you have what we're going to continue to talk with a sales cycle of how to actually take a call and then close them into your ticket item. And there is a systematic way of doing that. You can essentially print money on demand. And marketing, when you get it right, it becomes a spigot where you just turn money on and off, which is really, really nice. And it's like a game. You just have to know how to play the game right now. And also as a little bit of a, we'll say personal plug, obviously you guys as suppliers, you guys are talking to a lot of soon-to-be entrepreneurs that, like Samir said, they just don't really know what they're doing yet, right? It's confusing. That's why I am here to help. In a little bit of a unique situation that I have no partners, I have no investors. All the debt is in my name, and if it didn't work, I'm calling Phil for a job. So with that, that's why I created the consulting vision of Build a Golf Business, so that over 2 days, these operators can learn everything there is to make money in their facility. And at the same time, I've also built a program called Turnkey, which is a franchise without a franchise. It's a license to every single thing that we ever have had, do have, and will have in the golf room, so that they basically, like Samir said, when they get bigger, they build that operating system after they've gotten to more facilities. We just actually give it to them at the front end, but it's not as a franchise. They can do it under their own brand and likeness. So that is a thing. But I think that it's a nice marriage between the supplier and the owner on how they both can work together. And I think it's just making sure that the Indoor Golf Alliance is the glue that's connecting the two pieces of the vine.
Thanks, Kyle. Any closing words, Samir?
Just wanted to thank Phil for bringing everybody together to talk about an overdue organization. Happy to participate. Feel free to reach out either after this meeting or the next meeting. Happy to connect as well.
Yeah,
I'm going to send everyone your guys' information so they can connect with you. So let me just wrap up by saying this, gang. Indoor golf operators don't wake up wanting to buy supplies. They wake up wanting to run a profitable, reliable business and give their customers great experience. Our job as salespeople to understand that business, identify the problem we can solve, and make operators' life better. When we do that consistently, we stop being vendors and we become partners. Don't ask, what can I sell you today? Ask, what can I help the operator do better? So guys, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time, what you're doing. Stay in touch. And we're here to serve you. So have a great rest of the week. And guys, thanks so much for having us.
Thanks, Phil.
Thank you. Thanks,
All
Scott.
right, talk soon.